to order. And the Richmond Board of Education acknowledges and thanks the First Peoples of the Hunkaminam language group on whose traditional and unceded territories we teach, learn, and live. I don't know. It's kind of the usual crowd in the in the gallery here. So welcome everybody, and announcements. I'm sorry, I haven't handed out announcements. That was me. Check them off. Down there. Down here. Going down. Okay. Now that you've seen me hand out announcements, you know there are some. So whoever the first one, can you put up your hand, please? Trustee Hamaguchi.
Budget 2023-2024 announcement. Briefs regarding the 2023-2024 annual budget will be accepted without prior notice at the April 26, 2023 regular meeting of the board. Please note that budget updates will be made available on the district's budget website. All budget feedback will be considered by board as part of the budget process, which is anticipated to be completed by May 2023. Thank you.
Okay. See Wong.
Earth Day is an annual event on April 22nd to demonstrate support for environmental protection. First held on April 22nd, 1970. It now includes a wide range of events focused on promoting a healthy, sustainable habitat for all. The official theme for 2021 is Invest in Our Planet, which highlights the importance of dedicating our time, resources, and energy to solving climate change and other environmental issues. In Richmond, schools will plan for different individual classroom and school activities to honor Earth Day. Many green teams composed of students across grades will lead the way in designing and supporting environmental initiatives. Earth Day shares a connection to the district's strategic plans priorities. One, inspire learners. This strategic priorities including a focus on learners' involvement in activities that raise awareness of and increase engagement in global citizenship and environmental stewardship. In addition to Earth Day, our schools celebrate and support environmental stewardship in variety of ways throughout the year, whether it be through participating in district eco-wise grants, district initiatives such as Lights Out Lunch and Zero Waste campaign, or through school-wide and individual actions. Richmond students and staff demonstrate commitment to our environment today and every day.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. And Trustee Belisa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Education Week will take place in the Richmond School District from April 24th to the 28th. As with last year, families and community members will be able to visit our district website to see samples of learning over the course of the week. Each day will focus on particular theme, connecting to place, diversity, equity, and inclusion, exploring healthy living and well-being, learning together, and sharing our gifts. Education Week is also an opportunity to highlight many of the priorities in the board's strategic plan, which are inspired learners, equity and inclusion, and connected learning community. We look forward to highlighting learning as we celebrate Education Week in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Belisa. Madam Secretary Treasurer, are there any materials that are not included in the packages?
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. We received a budget brief from the RTA today, and we have distributed the brief to the trustees and also posted the brief on the district's board meeting website. All other meeting materials are included in the budget meeting package and are available to the public on the district's website. Thank you.
Adoption of the agenda. Is there, I'm looking for a mover, trustee Larson and trustee Hamaguchi. All those in favor? None opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. Presentations, briefs, special recognitions. There are no presentations, but as we've just heard, there is a brief from the Richmond Teachers Association and President Ms. Baverstock. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your brief.
So I apologize for the last minute brief. It was spring break. And so, I used some of my time to, of course, rest, recuperate, take care of self. But those who know me, I do actually write as a passenger in a car for 8 hours at a time. And the time passes very quickly when you're involved in a brief. So this is many mountain passes that go into this brief, both backwards and forwards to my roots, which is Kootenay Lake. And that is the Tanaha region of BC. And it is a very beautiful place, not well inhabited, but that is part of its beauty. I do also recognize that my voice is taxed. I've got lingering laryngitis. So I have two problems tonight. Number one, my voice, because as all of you know, I like to talk, and my brief, which is anything but. And I'm not going to really read to the brief, but I'm going to tell you what I consider a brief to be. And a brief for me, of course, is an advocacy piece, but it's also a learning opportunity. At the heart of what I do is I'm a teacher. And any opportunity I can have to provide some learning and to provide some reflections for people to think about, that's what I do. That's what I love to do. So what I've done in this brief is I've really tried to focus on some internal solutions, less on advocacy externally to others. Normally I start with that, like go out there and advocate for more, but we are where we are. Within this brief, there are really big themes, and the themes for me right now, recruitment, retention. I'm only going to speak about teachers, but this is across systems. But nothing happens without staff. Nothing happens without making sure that there's staff in buildings each day, that there's staff to replace people each day. And with that goes workload. Workload when there aren't enough staff, but workload because there's continual asks of systems, additional priorities, additional asks that come from the Ministry of Education. It's constant. So workload, recruitment, retention, support for professional learning and people. Some of those key pressures that I know you're well aware of, which is city center enrollment. And then tangible supports that I think are important for the strategic priorities and the ministry initiatives. And so this is all woven throughout the brief, recognizing that nothing happens without money, but some of these ideas are opportunities that can have ripples through the system. Some of them may be engaged with, others may not. Some of them may cost some money, others may not. And some may cost minimal amounts of money. What I do think is we need new approaches. We have a changing workforce, and the time and place that we're in is different. So, I acknowledge there's a lot of asks in here. There's not enough funds, but it's important to know that we need more in order to do more. Nothing is done without staff. And to do well, we need increased intentional support for learning and education. So I ask, and I know that you will, engage with this brief and reach out if you have any questions. And that is all I'm going to say tonight. Thank you.
Trustees have any questions for Ms. Baverstock on the brief? Well, I'm going to say, I did read through it, and yeah, there's a lot of asks on here, but I thought it was very interesting, and there's a few things I actually learned from it. So I think there's some really interesting suggestions in here for the board to consider in the budget, deliberations and discussions. And I really appreciate what's written here. And I'm sure all of us do. So we will absolutely take it into consideration. And I'm looking forward to someone to refer it to the budget process. Trustee Sargent, are you?
Move referral to the budget process.
So motion's been made to move it, the brief to the budget process. Seconder trustee Larson. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Great, thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you very much. It was very extensive and very interesting.
Thanks.
Moving on. This is a point where we can have questions from the public. Are there any questions from the public? And there are public on our, I think online too. I haven't looked. No questions? Okay. Moving on then, our executive report, and tonight we have our acting superintendent. And he is actually the deputy superintendent as well, Rick Ryan. And so I'm looking for you for the executive report.
So thank you, Chairperson. I'll ask our Secretary Treasurer Wang to provide a brief update on the superintendent search process, and I will follow with my around the district presentation.
Thank you. So I appreciate the opportunity here to provide an update on the superintendent search process. The board has been working actively with the executive search firm to recruit the next superintendent. The process is well underway, and the planned timeline is to identify or decide the new superintendent by early May. The board values stakeholders' input in this selection process, and there are opportunities for stakeholders to be involved in the process. So that's my quick update. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start with my around the district report. Slide. Thank you. STEM in the classroom. Mitchell Elementary hosted a show by Illumi, a group from Oregon, and combined STEM engineering and dance art. The artists revealed how STEM engineering design processes to create innovative new technologies in dance art, such as wearable electronic costumes and electronic puppets. Performance taught students some of the big ideas from applied design and skills technologies, including how designs can come from natural curiosity and be improved through prototyping. The show was a great success and aligns with Mitchell's school story focus, reconnecting through the arts. Next. Primary Running Club. Every week as the sun comes up over the horizon, students in the Dixon Primary Running Club lace up their running shoes and take off towards the dike. It's amazing how the energy of the group increases with every step as the young students challenge themselves to push further and run faster. But it's not just about physical activity. The running club also provides a valuable opportunity for the community to come together and connect with each other. At Dixon Elementary, they take fitness seriously. That's why they also have Fitness Fridays, where students and staff come together for a morning run, with some covering over 8 kilometers. Staff who lead these programs create an atmosphere that encourages a lifelong love of physical and mental wellness. Power of Stories. The McRoberts Library Learning Commons supports the school's English department by offering workshops that explore the oral traditions and protocols of the First Peoples. These workshops offer students and teachers alike the opportunity to delve deeper into the ways in which our worldviews shape our thinking. During these workshops, students are invited to ponder questions such as, how do our worldviews influence our thinking about ownership? And what constitutes a good way to share stories? These workshops have been collaborative efforts developed over several months with input from a district Indigenous curriculum integration teacher consultant. That's a mouthful. Moving forward, students and staff continue to learn and grow alongside each other as the workshops are constantly evolving with new lessons and insights emerging from each iteration. Social justice. Social justice at Hugh Boyd is making a difference in their community by working towards creating an equitable and inclusive society. Their efforts are focused on uplifting those groups who have been negatively impacted by the pandemic. Recently, the class organized an inspiring initiative to combat social isolation amongst seniors. They distributed 500 flowers outside the seniors facility at Minoru Center, bringing smiles and joy to the residents. In addition, the class established the Fearless Girl Award, which is presented to female students in grades 4 to 7 who have exhibited outstanding moral courage and community spirit. Overall, the social justice class at Hugh Boyd is an inspiration, and their initiatives are making an impact on their community. Their dedication to equity and inclusion serves as a positive example for others to follow, and their efforts are bringing hope and joy to those who need it most. Oh, Poesie. Canadian Parents for French is an organization that hosts various contests and events for students across Canada to explore and practice the French language. One such event is Oh, Poesie, a national French language poetry contest for students in grades 1 through 12 enrolled in FSL programs. This contest provides an opportunity for students to showcase creativity and literary skills while fostering a sense of belonging to Canada's Francophone community. Recently, students from Cambie Secondary School participated in the competition with the support of their teacher, Ms. Masaki. The students created beautiful French language poems and were thrilled to hear the results of the contest. 2 Cambie students placed in the top 3 of the core French grade 10 to 12 category, with 1 student achieving first place and the other achieving third place. The students were overjoyed with their success and felt a great sense of pride in their accomplishment. Congratulations to all students who participated. And that concludes my report, Chairperson.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from trustees on the report? That's fantastic. You know, some very interesting things always coming forward. What schools are doing, and what our students are doing. And I like the flowers for seniors, so it should have been there. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, I believe we are at approval of minutes of prior meetings. So there is a record of an in-camera meeting of the board held Wednesday, February 22nd. And regular meeting of the board held Wednesday, February 22nd for approval, and I'm looking for a motion to approve. Trustee Yang and Trustee Wong. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. And business arising from the minutes. Let me get my script. We have a report from our Executive Director of Facilities Services Richmond Project Team is attached. So we will have the report from our Executive Director of Facilities, Mr. Frank Geyer, and then we have the capital bylaw for 23-24 to approve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the recommendation you have before you tonight is that the capital project bylaw number 2023/24-CPSD 38-01 be approved by way of 3 readings and adopted. So this is an annual process where every June the board submits our 5-year capital plan to the Ministry of Education and Childcare, who have time to deliberate. And then once the provincial budget has been settled and the money meted out to the various ministries, the information gets passed back to school districts as to how we did with our capital requests. So we did get the letter from the Executive Director Capital Management Branch, which is attached. We received that March 9th. And I think we made out pretty good this year. We submitted a number of major capital projects, both seismic mitigation and additions. When I heard that many districts didn't really do that well with seismic mitigation, I think to get one is actually, I think it's pretty good. It's not what we were hoping for, but we'll take it. So John Diefenbaker Elementary seismic upgrade has been supported. With minor capital, we did extremely well this year. The school enhancement program, which is basically designed to extend the life of buildings, to renew buildings and their systems. You can see that there's a bit of a theme throughout all of these minor capital projects, and it has to do with heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. I wonder why that is. But we got projects that we've had on our capital plan for many years that have been supported. Under school enhancement, we got about $500,000 for the dust extraction system replacement. So that's in the school, in the shops. So in the woodwork shop, the metal workshop, we have these dust extraction systems, and many of our systems are on the older side. They no longer meet WorkSafe BC standards. So we've been putting these projects forward, and we're very, very happy that we received 2 more. Last year we had McNair. This year we got Richmond High, $500,000, and McMath, $768,000. So that's actually very good for us, because typically we only get about $700,000 total from this program. Where we really excelled this year is in the carbon neutral capital program. So that's the mechanism where the money that's gathered every year from school districts to make us carbon neutral. So it's the carbon offsets. That money is then put back in the form of capital improvements to reduce our carbon footprint. And this year we got just a little, I think it's just a little over $1.4 million in this area. And typically, again, we only get about $500,000. So we did very well this year. And so we're going to be doing our phase 2 of our lab ventilation upgrade. So these are the fume hoods in biology and chemistry labs. And again, our systems are on the older side. They need significant work to upgrade them to improve air quality. So we got just under $740,000 there. We were very excited that we got LED lighting upgrades, because this again brings down our carbon footprint, and it helps us with our overall sustainability program, which is captured in the strategic priority 3 under facility condition. So we got Hugh McRoberts, and it says here that we got Ferris, but we're working on that because we just finished Ferris. So we think so we're working with the ministry to get a replacement school in there. We're not going to lose money, but we just have to change the elementary school. And then finally, and this came as a complete surprise to us because this was the $64,000 for the low temperature. It says low temperature twice. Well, that's the way the ministry has it. Heating retrofit and hot water replacement is supposed to be part of the building envelope upgrade, which is on hold right now, but they're letting us do the mechanical components. So we're not going to quibble. We're just going to do it. So overall, I think that we did very well. We didn't get an announcement on playgrounds yet. I have inquired with the ministry as to when we can expect an announcement on playgrounds. They said that they believe it is going to be a separate announcement. So we just have to hold our excitement until then. But overall, like I said, I think we did very well this year. And in accordance with the ministry's project procurement procedures and guidelines, the board must adopt a bylaw for its approved 5-year capital plan. And then the bylaw authorizes the secretary treasurer to execute the annual programs funding agreement to cover these projects. And that document, both documents, the capital bylaw and the funding agreement, the annual programs funding agreement, are attached for your information. And with that, I end my report and again, my recommendation. Thank you.
There, any question? Yes, trustee Beliza.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for a very comprehensive report. Considering the scope and the terms and conditions referred to in the annual program funding agreement, are we up to, or are we ready for the projects? Because there are board obligations stated herein. And my question, I guess, for the board is, are we ready to I guess perform our obligations? Because there are some provisions that non-compliance will mean serious implications on the project. And there are also ineligible expenditures that we are up to. So share us your thought about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I wouldn't be bringing this forward unless I believed in it and believed that we can carry this out. And the reputation that we've developed within the Richmond School District and Facility Services Richmond project team is we have delivered, and we have yet to put ourselves in a position where we haven't met the obligations in these project agreements. I personally do all the estimating for these jobs, and we have yet to blow a budget on any of these yet. And so my confidence with our team is that we're more than ready and capable of delivering all these projects within budget, so that the board can rest assured there'll be no undue obligations to itself for these projects.
Thank you.
Trustee Sargent.
Thank you very much. And thank you to staff, hardworking team that we have to, make sure that we get the facilities that we need and to put forward a really awesome capital plan, which we did. And of course, I'll support the recommendation because it's just a bylaw saying we'll take the money. Thank you. Put it in the bank. But I am disappointed that we have a project team office and a really good one, and we only have one project. So I know we're happy that we get money, but I think it needs to be shared that we have a lot of seismic sites. That's why we got the project office, is because they need to be addressed. There's a lot of H1 sites in our district, and they're not being addressed. And I am really worried about that. And I think we need to, as you know, I'm a proponent for City Center School, but everything is showing what was predicted to happen only sooner. And every child deserves a school that they can walk to. And so I'm really disappointed there was no acknowledgement of a city center school or any upgrades to that. I don't know where the students will be going, if we're going to have to bus. So whereas I'm excited that we have some money and that we have a really good team, I'm disappointed as a board member that we don't have more seismic sites. That is what we need, and we need a city center school. And so I hope some of the money that's going to childcare capital will also, seismic won't be forgotten. And I just feel like I need to share that. I'm sure you feel the same, but thank you very much for all your hard work. And of course, I will support the recommendation, but I think it needs to be said. Thank you.
Trustee Yang.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. No questions other than just thanking Mr. Guyer for the report. Just a few comments, I think, echoing what trustee Sargent has said, there's always room to do more. And I think, in my short time here so far, but it seems like this is a tale as old as time, and that is, the need to, keep advocating for these projects. But, I look at this and I see, lots of childcare spaces for young families here in Richmond. I see a lot of, climate upgrades that will make sure that we meet the targets that are set up in our sustainability and climate action plan. So I'm very happy to see that that's happening. I think it's like improv, you got to say yes and take that up to our MLAs and higher jurisdictions to really make sure we advocate for our facilities here in the district. So overall, excited to see these projects and be supporting the bylaw.
Are there any other questions? I just want, well, I have a couple of comments. I have one question. Yes, we will be meeting with our MLAs quite soon. So, I mean, we can certainly take that advocacy piece to them. We have moved ahead with a number of projects, and there is some finishing up, which is good. And Diepenbaker was one that was anticipated and needed. So grateful for that. And the Select Standing Committee is also doing its annual roadshow. So once again, we're just waiting for a response on presenting, and then we can also do some advocacy there along with hopefully our stakeholders, which we have always done in the past. So 2 opportunities for advocacy for trustees. And I just had a question though on that. You said the heating retrofit and hot water, the building envelope is on hold. So that's for Archibald Blair. Why is the building envelope on hold?
That's actually a very good question. The ministry approved the advancement of the design for both the Howard DeBeck and the Archibald Blair Elementary Building Envelope programs, in hopes that there was going to be enough money to push both projects through when you're comparing them with all the other building envelope projects in the province. And when the ministry came to us and said, okay, if you have to pick one, which one would you pick? And we said, well, it doesn't make sense for us to do a building envelope upgrade after we do a seismic upgrade. And we already had the DeBeck project approved. So we said to the ministry, if you allow us to fold the funding for that project, so BC Housing doesn't manage it, which they do for all the other school districts, if you let us manage that funding and roll it into the seismic upgrade, we can deliver a complete project faster. So we were basically weighing it out, and common sense tells you only want to disrupt the school once, so you don't want to have to open up the building twice. So what we did, we said that given the choice, we'll defer Blair a year. So right now, what we're anticipating is that a year from now, whoever is sitting in this spot is going to be saying to you, guess what? We finally got the Blair project after 6 attempts. And yeah, so that's what's happening with that. It's just a matter of lack of provincial funding for that program. And that program the funding has dwindled because of all the other capital pressure. So there's the same pot of money, but it's being distributed more thinly. So therefore there's less money left, but I'm very confident with a year from now, we'll be able to.
Okay. And so it makes sense to do DeBeck. And great. Good answer. Thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay. I will read the recommendation. Yes. Yes. So I'm trying to decide whether to read this first, but I'll ask consensus, I guess, for 3 readings of this bylaw tonight. Oh, I'm seeing head nods. That's good. Okay. So here we go. I'll read the first reading of the bylaw in full, and then maybe I can abbreviate the rest. A bylaw of the Board of Education of School District Number 38 Richmond, hereinafter called the board to adopt a capital plan of the board pursuant to sections 143(2) and 144(1) of the School Act. Whereas in accordance with provisions of the School Act, the Minister of Education, hereinafter called the Minister, has approved the capital plan of the board. Now therefore, the board agrees to the following. Authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute project agreement related to the expenditures contemplated by the capital plan. Upon approval to proceed, commence the projects and proceed diligently and use its best efforts to complete each project substantially as directed by the minister. Observe and comply with any order, regulation, or policy of the minister as may be applicable to the board or the projects, and maintain proper books of account and other information and documents with respect to the affairs of the projects as may be prescribed by the minister. Now, therefore, the board enacts as follows: the capital bylaw of the board for 23-24 capital plan as approved by the minister to include the supported projects specified in the letter addressed to the Secretary Treasurer and Superintendent dated the 9th of March 2023 is hereby adopted, and this bylaw may be cited as School District Number 38 Richmond Capital Bylaw 2324-CP SD 38-01. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the first reading. So Trustee Beliza and Trustee Yang. I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, the motion is carried. Thank you. That's the first reading. So I'll read the second reading of the bylaw in summary. That the Board of Education Richmond approved capital bylaw number 2324-CPSD 38-01. Through the bylaw, the board agrees to authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute the project agreement and commence and proceed with the approved projects diligently and comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and ministry policies. And I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for the second reading. Trustee Larson and Trustee Sargent. Any question or discussion? All those in favor? And the second reading is carried. I'll read the third reading. That the Board of Education Richmond approved capital bylaw number 2324-CPSD 38-01. Through the bylaw, the board agrees to authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute the project agreement and commence and proceed the approved projects diligently and comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and ministry policies. And I'm looking for a mover and seconder for the third reading. Trustee Yang and Trustee Wong. Any discussion? All those in favor? The third reading passes. So the 23-24 capital bylaw is approved. And thank you for your patience with all those readings. Okay. And moving into business arising 7B on the agenda, the strategic plan quarterly update, strategic priority 4 and 5. And I'm going to turn the floor over to our current superintendent of the day, Mr. Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you again, Chairperson. Well, staff are grateful for the opportunity to share progress to this point in the school year related to strategic priorities 4 and 5. A bit of background: as part of the strategic plan reporting cycle, it has been agreed that quarterly reports focusing on specific priorities will be provided to the board each December, March, and June. So at this time, I will introduce Executive Director, Human Resources, Laura Buchanan, and Secretary Treasurer Cindy Wang will share their updates on priority 4 progress on each goal area for this school year. Their presentation will be followed by communications and marketing, David Sadler and me on behalf of our former superintendent, and we will share updates related to priority 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The written report is on page 45 of the board package. However, the presentation that I'll be speaking to here is designed to be an illustrative and perhaps hopefully engaging picture of the work that's underway. And it is, again, my pleasure to present to you tonight, sharing the important work that our HR team is currently undertaking and our plans looking ahead to continue moving towards the goals as set out in our strategic plan. I'm incredibly fortunate to work with an exceptional group of HR professionals who are dedicated to our district, to our work, and the highlights that are shared here are most certainly a reflection of their skill and dedication every day that they come into work. You can see here the description of this priority is a comprehensive wraparound approach that recognizes the variety of ways that we're privileged to support our employees, knowing that the strength and support for our employees translate directly into the educational experience of our students throughout every area and across every function of the school district. With respect to goal 1, inclusion, equity, and diversity are foundational to employment at every level of the district. As I've said before, these efforts are continuous. They will never be complete. We will always be working to learn and grow in this area. For the presentation, I've chosen to highlight one really significant initiative that's been in place over the course of this year that I'm so grateful for the commitment across our teams to have spent 3 full days together, November, February 8th and March 8th, attended by over 50 members of our management team, as well as our executive team. And it was really important to have our executive team there alongside our management team to learn together, focused on the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We held sessions with Bacau Consulting, and Amrita was our presenter on inclusive meetings and inclusive leadership practices. I really can't overstate the importance of this initiative. We are able to say that over the course of this school year, all of our management staff and executive team spent 3 days together learning on this piece that's integral to our strategic plan, as well as giving them practical tools to utilize in their day-to-day work. And so the takeaways from that is ongoing of resources, toolkits to continue that learning. They aren't just 3 days that we spent together, but we want to build from those days and continue that process. Also included, and it's not highlighted here, but in our action plan is working towards an employee-focused DEI strategy. And that's as recommended through the Diversity and Anti-Racism Working Group, as well as the audit by Bacau Consulting. This, of course, is foundational to achieving this goal and is the foundation of our strategy. We have been engaged in incredibly rich discussion with the DEI advisory group and a few of my colleagues here on that committee. And I'm sure I speak for others. We leave those meetings feeling good, that we're doing great work. There's lots of momentum to connect us together. And we will continue to do that. So really grateful for that opportunity and that energy that we create through that committee. In that way, and again, connecting the work of that committee to the connection with the strategic plan, just recently in part of those discussions, looking at the K-12 anti-racism strategy and knowing that is perhaps focused on the student more necessarily than the work that I'm focused on with respect to the employee strategy, but you can connect those together. And those discussions at that committee illustrate it so perfectly that these are connected and you can't really pull each one out. And so a fantastic idea and discussion that committee was looking at the materials that were created for through that anti-racism strategy and seeing what we can utilize and leverage for our employees. And so the work that's underway right now is getting additional copies of those posters that have been put out to schools and putting them up in our work sites. and increasing the visibility of this messaging so that it's visible every day in our working spaces, and again, raises the consciousness and the need to continue to work and learn and grow in this area. Also in that action plan, and it connects perfectly to the work we're doing with our this goal here, is a plan provincially for a anti-racism professional learning module. And in that plan, its timeline is for this current school year. So we are hopeful that that will be accomplished, and we will look when that's available, and hopefully we'll be able to use that content to meet our goals here and have that in place across our school district as well. Okay, switching gears into goal 2, professional learning, leadership, and skill development for all staff. I had referenced last year some of the work that underway of information gathering, learning where we've been, to develop plans for where we are going. And we now have a final draft of a multi-year learning plan developed over the past year for the purpose of really consolidating all of the professional learning that is required under the strategic plan. The plan is for next month for that to be distributed to our strategic plan leads as a guide and assistance for us measuring our work towards that goal and ensuring that we're on track on all of those intentions that we have set. Again, last year I spoke about developing a comprehensive leadership development plan across the district. At that time, we were researching other organizations, their various states of readiness or being further along the path, and learning what we can from other organizations and aligning that with our strategic plan, as well as our district mission, vision, and values. We do now have an initial draft of that framework. It's currently under review at the district level. The structure is set out here. Again, it's a draft form. It may change, but the idea is to provide a really clear pathway for people to understand what are the learning opportunities, what are the values that we communicate through the professional learning that we offer, as well as provide that readiness and the toolkit type of learning that managers and administrators need in their roles. This will evolve. This will always be a continuous review process. However, I can also see this, and it's intended to be used as well as a recruitment tool to showcase for those who are considering moving into leadership or management positions. Here's how we support our leaders, and here's how we grow our leaders. It's a consistent question we get through our recruitment efforts of what are the professional learning opportunities for me, for candidates sitting in the hot seat. And it will be fantastic to have something really concrete and very well considered to share with them. Okay, still on goal 2, again, professional learning, leadership, and skill development. This graphic is intended to show the learning opportunities that have been offered over the past year for education assistants. And one of the pieces as we continue in this work is working to try and break down some of the silos that do exist between employee groups, and perhaps folks feeling that certain professional learning opportunities are not necessarily for them. But this really illustrates the volume of learning opportunities that are there. So those numbers that you see on the screen, they represent the number of sessions that have been offered to education assistants on these various areas. So there have been 13 sessions focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion, 8 sessions focusing on Indigenous education. And you can see as you look at those subject areas, the alignment with our strategic plan. That is obviously intentional and will continue to do so as we leverage this type of structure. This is a fairly well-established approach in the district for our education assistants of robust professional learning, and we want to grow that. We know there are groups that have a bit of a harder reach to get to in the professional learning, but we have some great structures to be able to continue to work through that. We're also using the results of a provincial survey that have Richmond-specific results to further develop our professional learning offerings for other employee groups, as well as that approach of trying to widen the lens to have offerings that are applicable to all employees. So we have shared those survey results with our department managers that oversee and support QP positions to assist them with developing their professional learning programs. And we will be following up with them to learn how that worked for them and how they were able to utilize those results, and or how we continue to support them in doing so in the future. Okay, moving on to goal number 3. And this is one we've talked about for a number of years now, of employee health and well-being is valued and supported within a culture of caring. Of course, the past 3 years have been quite an experience through the pandemic. And we know that employee health and well-being is fundamental to the school district in accomplishing our goals and our strategic objectives. We were well placed to do so leading up to the pandemic and continuing through. We do engage in a regular and annual review process to get feedback on the offerings that have been in place in the current year, and then look at offerings for the previous year. And you can see some of the results of the last survey that we have done. The next survey coming up will be in May. The vaccine clinics have been highly valued. We think, reaching the end of that a little bit, and we've reached all of those groups where there was a pent-up demand. And so it will be a little, we see the volume being less going ahead. But I also would like to highlight the Calm app, and that's available for all employees. We get great uptake on that app, and those who use it really do value it. As luck would have it, I was at a meeting this morning for the Public Education Benefits Trust, and our QP reps were there with us as well. And they mentioned it to another district and thought, no way your district pays for that for you. Yes, we do. And so very high levels of satisfaction with that offering. Still in goal 3, one of our objectives was to expand the offerings that are available. And so 2 that I've highlighted here is a new partnership with Canadian Blood Services. It's called Partners for Life, which encourages blood donation and or other types of support for blood donation or Canadian Blood Services. We are in our early stages there, so we're working to grow it, and we have dedicated support through Canadian Blood Services to build that and get more participation. We've also developed an initiative to invite employees to be healthy workplace champions at their work site. And to date, the schools listed here are schools where at least one staff member has put their hand up to volunteer to be a healthy workplace champion. Often these are people who are already doing this informally, organizing activities with their colleagues, and or who have a passion in the health and wellness area. And so we're working to get, we'd love to have every worksite and every school have a healthy workplace champion, and continue to develop more resources for administrators and managers to support their teams in their health and well-being. That's well underway. Moving on to goal 4, high quality staff with growth potential are recruited and retained in the school district. Again, this is an area that is of continuous improvement that we will always be looking and improving here. Some highlights here. We do, part of our strategic plan, we introduced a survey for new hires. And so every 3 or 4 months, we identify the new hires. That's easy for us to do through our HR system, and put a survey out to them to learn what attracted them to the district. Why did they choose us? What was their recruitment experience like? And some of the results are highlighted here. I won't read those off to you. However, I will share a few of the written comments that we received that I find very powerful and reinforce and I think invigorate the work that we're doing. So some of the quotes are, and the question is, what is it about the Richmond School District as an employer that made you choose to apply? Because Richmond School District treats all staff respectfully and give a sense of belonging. I grew up in Richmond and I love the school that I have attended. It was a great memory for me. I wanted to be part of the good memory for our future generations. The excellent reputation of District 38, as well as the 2025 strategic plan. As the Richmond School District values a diverse and inclusive workplace that is committed to creating a positive work environment for all employees. There's more. Those are just some highlights. And so I very much appreciate the time that employees take to complete this. And it provides us very rich feedback on their recruitment experience, but also why folks are coming to work here. We are also just about ready to implement a new HR module in our HR system, and that's going towards one of our goals in this area is streamlining and improving access to employee service to enhance current employee experience. Sometimes HR processes can be a bit paper heavy and not necessarily moved into the new realm of online processes. So this is one that we're really excited about, which is through the onboarding process. When we newly hire employees in, they will be able to complete all the documents and tax forms and benefit forms and things like that that we need them to complete in a much more streamlined environment for them. It's also a great signal of modernizing our practices. I'll move a little more quickly. I think I'm taking more time than I thought, but this is all very exciting for me to share with you. And I do have a picture of the whale watching, so I'm not going to skip over that if those of you who've heard me speak about it. Last year, I sat here and hoped that we would be named as the top employer. That didn't happen, and I'm not broke up about that, partly because I think you probably need to apply a number of years to do it. It takes a lot of staff time, and it's actually expensive. We spend about $1,000 applying for that. So what we intend to do is instead learn from those who are on the list, and there's a public list of those who are named, as well as highlights of what they offer, and learn from them and see if there's anything for us to learn from them. We know this is a great place to work. And we don't need this to know that. We actually get that from that survey that I highlighted. It's a great place to work. And so we'll keep learning from that. Okay. Without further ado. Oh, sorry, I'm distracted by the whale watching. All right, so goal number 4, again, high quality staff with growth potential recruited and retained in all positions. This is a testament to the work of our district administrators who banded together and put a ton of energy into building a community field experience for teacher candidates. Upon the conclusion of their teacher practicum in our school district, we offer a very comprehensive strategy for recruiting those teacher candidates into our district. So these are new, just about to graduate teachers who've spent their practicum with us, who then we get to engage with, and we get to connect them to our school district. Our understanding is we're the only metro school district that has put this in place so far. There are other more rural school districts who have been doing this for quite a while. But this has been such a positive experience. We take them on a tour of our island to connect them to our place and to our story. They went on a boat tour in November 2022, and they actually saw whales, and we got pictures of it. And I think those teacher candidates will talk about that for many, many years to come and connect them to us. We take them to the district resource center, outdoor classrooms. They learn about all of the resources that we have available in our school district. We know we have many that others do not, and this is a absolute competitive advantage for us in recruiting and retaining teacher candidates. So there'll be more to come on that, and maybe more whales next year. Okay, and last one, goal 5, maybe not as exciting as whale watching. However, there's been some really good work here on it from members of the HR team, members at our HR coordinator level who are responsible for recruitment at the noon hour supervisor level, as well as clerical. They really jumped into this idea of looking at these staffing allocations and seeing we've had some of these formulas for many years, or not even have necessarily a formula. And does that still make sense for us in the landscape that is shifting and changing for us? And so they did a ton of work, really comprehensive reports looking at noon hour supervisor staffing. They did surveys with our administrators. They went out and did site visits, which they thought was awesome. They were a little spooked when someone thought they were a teacher and needed something for them, but it was a great story. The administrators really appreciated it, really appreciated the time and energy that they came in and asked them what they thought, looked at their school site, walked around the playground with them, instead of us making decisions here removed at the school board office. And so we have looked at our new number supervisor formula, and based on the feedback and the information that we have gathered, figured right now it's working well. And there will always be issues that we look at and revise. But our clerical was one that a gap was really identified, that we were staffing this a bit of a reactive and needing schools to ask of us rather than us looking proactively to say, how can we support this staffing need? And so we've made adjustments to our school clerical staffing formula, particularly as our schools, a few of them get very large. And so that's a really positive development. And again, our administrators really appreciate the time and energy of our team coming out and doing that work with them. Really positive experience for them as well as the HR team. So that's some highlights. I apologize, I went over time, but I get a little wordy in talking about this because it's just such a great opportunity to share this with you. And speaking on behalf of sharing this of the great team that I have. I don't do this by myself. It's a fantastic team. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Cindy and give me questions.
Sure. Thank you, Laura. So I'll be reporting on the quarterly update on strategic priority 4, goal 6. The district has effective risk management policies and practices in place to ensure safety and stability. So my report is on page 42 to 44 of the public meeting package. Following the initial ERM assessment performed in the last school year, the district is currently in the process of establishing the formal ERM policy. A draft policy is presented in today's meeting package. This policy defines the governance structure and also the procedures for the district to actively manage the risks. The next step, of course, is to implement the policy, which will be involving the district management staff to periodically review and update the risk matrix, mitigation strategies and plans, and also allocate resources to mitigate potential risks. And also, we're not going to forget effective communication of risk management strategies with our stakeholders as needed. So that's my update. It's short. Laura and I will be entertaining any questions you may have on priority 4.
Any questions, Trustee Sargent?
Sorry, I just had to take the time to thank you and your team for a really, really awesome, heartfelt presentation. And I think it's okay if we go over when so much work has gone into it. And I just want to say, I think we're year 2 of our strat plan, maybe 2.5. And I just feel the reports are even getting more passionate. And I just think that's a really good sign that I think we picked really good things to work on. And it's really nice to see when you report out to us in the public that we're all working towards the same goals. And I think this is really the strength of strategic planning. Because we really, year 5, when we look to do a new one, I think we'll be able to reflect and see some real, goals that were reached, or, the progress was huge because everybody was doing that. So I just wanted to say, I thought your report really was passionate about, people are really engaged and you're just always trying to keep getting better. And I really appreciate that. And then, even though yours was short, I know I'm so proud of our district for the work we've done around risk. I know I've said it many times, but I think we can really now move on. We'll adopt the policy, I think, tonight. And, people are really thinking risk minded. And I think that's really important to do. So just a lot of thanks and keep the passion going. I think it's really good. Thanks.
Okay, Trustee Larson.
Just a quick one. Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer Ming. It's solid. You've given us, we've worked together on the risk management, and what you've provided us with is solid, and that's a good feeling to have. So thank you. And there, I thought you went back over there. I was And I had passion on my mind as well, as trustee Sargent mentioned. The one piece that has always been so important to me is we have these big goals in our strategic plan, and that's wonderful. And it's important to have that shining light to work towards. But it's every little thing that every person in this district does every day that gets us to those goals. And thank you for sharing what you have, those examples. I know that there's hundreds more and probably thousands more, but those pieces help us to understand what some of that day-to-day work looks like and feels like. And as trustee Sargent said, your passion for what you're doing, that is wonderful as a leader. Can't help but to suck it up like osmosis. And thank you. Yeah, you can really see and feel out there that it's happening, and that's wonderful.
Trustee Beliza. Oh, sorry, I had trustee Yang first and then trustee.
Doesn't really matter, but thank you, Chairperson. And as always, thank you so much for the professional report. I know you you were mentioning you were over time, but you know, as one of the city's largest employers, I think we owe that time to really hear the reporting and what's been going on within our district's staff population. And so just a few questions. In goal 3, it was mentioned that you know, we went on to speak a little bit about staff well-being. Could you go a little further in depth to you know, enlighten us on the mental health support that we're providing to our staff?
Absolutely. And so it didn't highlight here, but another piece that we're actively working on right now is one, learning about best practice, which is an ongoing process. And one of the pieces that we know about that is often when folks need those resources, it's very confusing. And yes, there is lots that's offered, but it's really not consolidated. So our plan, it's actually coming up just in April, is putting together a hopefully streamlined, easily navigated, what are the mental health resources that are available in the school district. And they are significant. You always need more. But a great addition as well is the improvements in the extended health plan that are coming in for all employees, if not in now, for July 1st, and expanded mental health supports, including clinical counseling, which has been a big gap that we haven't had in place. So we're very pleased at that development as well. And then looking forward again to next year, one of our specific objectives is an employee engagement plan. And so that is where you will really tap into and do a bit more surveying and get some more quantitative data directly from employees on what that engagement level is, because we know when folks are engaged in their work, they are healthier. And that's a big component.
That's fantastic to hear that, you know, there are so much work that's ongoing, you know, beneath the surface of the PowerPoint presentation you just gave. And so, and I did want to touch on goal 4 a little bit as well, because we mentioned the survey. I know that the survey went out to staff that were hired and were brought on board to our district. I'm wondering if there are any plans to, you know, expand the scope of that survey to those who weren't hired, because, you know, a teacher is a teacher and a maintenance worker is a maintenance worker. But at the end of the day, they may come back to our district at some time to reapply. And so, you know, having that voice, I think, is valuable to our work as well. And so just any comments on that?
So you mean folks who we've interviewed and engaged with, but haven't made it through a hiring process?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, we haven't necessarily considered that, but that's something I can take away and see how it might integrate into a future initiative.
Yeah, I know in my previous job searching, it's, you know, I've seen it once in a while, and it really is helpful, because it really shows that even though you weren't successful in that round of hiring, that you still feel they still value you as potential candidate. And then finally on goal 5, the data collection, I'm wondering if similar work has been ongoing for other work groups as well. I know we covered clerical staff and
New hour
EAs?
supervisors.
Oh, yes, new hour super, yes, that's correct. So yeah, any work on that?
Yeah, for sure. So we've identified the next group to do that work for is technology services staff, working with Rob's team. So we've engaged in our initial discussion on that and building plans. All of this was done in-house. And so tech services might be something that we can do in-house. It might be something that we might need a bit of outside guidance on as well. But really the foundation for that is tech services is only growing and expanding across the district. And we hear about increasing costs and staff pressure. So that's our next one we've targeted.
Super, thank you. Keep up the good work.
Hey, Trustee Balisa.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank all the presenters presenting a wonderful strategic plan. But as a trustee, we know it's a plan. Whether it's a proof of effectivity, efficiency is all what I'd like to know. I have similar question, I guess, with Trustee Yang, and that is first, whether we have a job satisfaction survey for all our staff, different department, including teachers and EAs, whether what are their comments and so far as their satisfactions with their respective job. And we know we are talking about the strategic number 4, which is the, working on progressive workplace. Now, my other question would be, I've talked a lot of some administrators about the problems of the shortages, problems about absenteeism. And do you know how many positions or shortages do we have for our teachers and for our EAs and for other staff? Would those problems impact their mental health and equitable distributions of job functions that might derail our plan?
Yeah, so certainly I'll answer the second one first, in that, yes, we have very good data to know what our landscape is with respect to staffing shortages. I think probably the last one I might have presented to the board might have been January, February, not sure. That'll be in previous reports. So we do track that closely and know what those shortages look like. And yes, it's absolutely been a topic of conversation, particularly with administrators, on the impact of those shortages at their schools. As luck would have it, we have a working group running with administrators and district staff. We met yesterday for one of those meetings to discuss exactly this. And one of the strategies that we are putting together is a bit of a best practice guide for administrators on working through those shortages such that they are hopefully less challenging, because we know bigger picture. We have provincial labor shortages, Canadian labor shortages with respect to teachers, with respect to EAs across lots of positions. And so there's a lot of bigger picture work that's underway there, but looking at what can we control, how can we support people? And yes, we know that being short of staff has a workload impact upon our employees. It has a burnout impact upon our employees, and it impacts their health. There's no question about that. Knowing that there are things we can't control on the shortages, what are the things that are within control? So yes, actively working through that. And then your first question on job satisfaction, that is a perfect component of an employee engagement plan and building a really comprehensive survey. Other districts that have done that, they actually work with an outside consultant, work closely with your union groups in developing that survey and how the data will be used, what it means for you, and how do you use it to improve the workplace experience. So that within that goal area, we intentionally had a sort of year 1, year 2, year 3 strategy, and the engagement plan is in year 3. So we'll talk about that next year.
Thank you. Well, I can see you're really excited about what you're doing. We're thankful for that. And it was a very interesting report. Learned a lot. You will call up. Mr. Sadler.
And,
Thank you.
Priority 5, which our Director of Communications and Marketing, Mr. Sadler. Yeah, your package, it starts on page 36. Share with the board that David returned home from Taipei last evening and hasn't slept for 2 days, and he did this just to be here with us.
Lots of coffee.
That's right.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Strategic Priority 5 supports the board's focus on making measurable improvements to engagement, collaboration, and access to information. The objectives and actions within this priority establish a framework for making continual improvements to internal and external communications, with an emphasis on effectively informing and engaging all members of our district community. Regarding Goal 1, which aims to improve external communication practices, I am pleased to report we have made progress towards achieving Objective 1. This involves developing and implementing communication guidelines and cohesive design standards. To that end, we've created an internal brand guidelines document that we've shared within the district. Furthermore, we've designed training sessions to ensure consistent use of these guidelines, and they will be delivered to managers and administrators each September. This training will equip staff members with the necessary skills to implement the internal brand guidelines effectively. We've also made progress towards Objective 3, which aims to provide equitable access to information. We've identified communication channels and relevant stakeholder groups, and we completed accessibility scans on the district website. The website accessibility scans ensure equitable access to information for all individuals in our district community, supporting our focus on making measurable improvements to engagement, collaboration, and access to information under Strategic Priority 5. Moving on to Goal 2, which focuses on internal communication practices, I am pleased to report we have made progress towards achieving Objective 2. This involves the development of a new intranet that effectively delivers communications while promoting collaboration and connection. Working closely with technology services, we've made advancements on several fronts, including training for various content managers, implementing a governance structure, and completing back-end server and AD integration. We've also been working on the design and structure, which incorporates feedback from various departments and staff members. Additionally, we continue to test the platform to identify and resolve issues, while developing tutorial resources to support content managers. Lastly, Goal 4 focuses on being an engaged and collaborative community partner. I'm pleased to report we have made progress towards achieving Objective 2, which involves engagement, consultation, and input into school and district decision-making. To this end, we've developed a framework for engagement document that provides community engagement guidelines for senior staff. The framework includes public participation best practices from the International Association for Public Engagement. It also identifies past engagement activities, stakeholder groups, and communication channels. Moving forward, this framework can be utilized by staff when considering different audiences in the decision-making process. In conclusion, progress has been made towards achieving the objectives of Strategic Priority 5, which focuses on making measurable improvements to engagement, collaboration, and access to information. Thank you for your time, and that concludes my portion of the report.
Thank you, Director Sadler. And I will defer updates related to Strategic Priority 5, Goal 3, Objective 1 and 2, out of respect for District Administrator Mika Livingston, who is prepared and will be making a presentation with me on student voice updates and initiatives when we get to item 8, our agenda. So the presentation will cover the areas of focus as outlined in the report before you. So this concludes our report, and David is happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you.
Trustee Larson.
Just have a quick comment, and I apologize. I don't know where it fits exactly, but I spend a fair amount of time looking at the different school stories and the websites. And I've noticed over the last, I think about the last 6 months or a year, that there's this flow that's much easier to follow. And yet it's very specific to each school. So it's not just the same story or the same and how things are done, because it shows the different culture at each school. And I was really impressed with it. I just went over a couple of them the other day and I thought, wow, this is really interesting and easy to sort of find those different spots if you're not sure. Because not everybody goes to that, but I think once that starts, more people do, it's really simple and engaging. So thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for presenting after such a long travel, and we hope you had a good time in Tuckney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good sleep too. Okay. We are at number 7. C, the update on Student Family Affordability Fund. And that would be Assistant Superintendent McMillan will be presenting. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure tonight to provide an update on expenditures around the Student and Family Affordability Fund. As you know, and as we've been discussing throughout the year, this is a fund of one-time funding that was provided by the ministry to support and has significantly augmented opportunities to support financially vulnerable students and families in our district. Just for reference, for those who may not be completely familiar, the goals of the fund were to directly offset costs to parents, guardians, and students for school-related costs, including school supplies, other cost pressures, field trips, et cetera, as well as to improve student access to nutritional food or meals before, during, or after the school day. And so the funding has been, as I say, been used to significantly augment a number of initiatives and opportunities that already existed in our district, including nutritional opportunities, opportunities for food and meal support outside of the school day, providing cost pressure release around school supplies and other costs that they've been saving, cost pressures that people are facing, and has been a really significant opportunity for supporting a number of vulnerable families throughout the year. As was discussed previously and is here for your reference, there was consultation and communication with a variety of stakeholder groups as this initiative rolled out in early fall of 2022, including meetings with district staff, the Richmond Teachers Association, and Richmond District Parents Association, among others. Feedback was also requested from Indigenous stakeholder groups, including Musqueam First Nation and Métis Nation BC. Information was shared initially and continues to be shared with families through school communication processes, such as newsletters, district-wide bulletins, and through the district website. That's been a key priority in getting information out to families to make sure that they're aware of all of the opportunities, as well as maintaining a focus on confidentiality and honoring the privacy of those who are reaching out for support. As I say, initial opportunities focused on food security support, school fees, other school-related costs. Since that time, that has grown, and in working with the ministry around the parameters of the fund was expanded and included opportunities for clothing and footwear needs, grocery gift cards over winter and spring break, and continuing to expand nutrition and food supports, and most recently creating school-based allocations for each school so that they can then work within their own school context to address needs as they arise. A mid-year summary of the report of our expenditures was submitted to the ministry at the end of January. As of March 2023, and you can see this on the second page of the report, page 52 of the board package, total expenditures and commitments totaling $1.18 million have been allocated thus far. That includes, and it's the breakdown you can see here, supporting school-related extracurricular participation has been $72,000. These are round numbers. I put some zeros at the end rather than the exact dollar amount. Field trips, $129,000. Transportation, $42,000. Student supplies, $84,000. food security, and you'll see this is a significant number, $700,000. And you can see some of the ways that number has been allocated throughout the district. Clothing and footwear, $33,000, and student fees, $78,000. Targeted funds have also been allocated in addition to those school allocations I discussed, but also for specific vulnerable populations, such as those students in our alternate programs and other supports accessed through the Indigenous Success Department. Looking ahead, we're continuing to receive requests and provide supports to provide that kind of financial support as we continue on through the remainder of the school year. And as been recently released through the ministry, we're looking ahead and starting to find out and we'll gain more information about additional nutritional funding that will be coming from the ministry for the coming school year. This one-time special purpose fund has been able the district to provide significant enhanced supports for students and families facing affordability concerns. And this support, as we all know, aligns well with Goal 1 of the board's strategic plan, Priority 2, equity and inclusion, as we look to support equitable and inclusive learning environments for all of our learners. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Trustees have any questions? Trustee Sargent?
Just a comment, and clarity, just to confirm, we do have funding for it for next year.
So this was one time, the Student and Family Affordability Fund is one-time funding for this year only. What the ministry has announced is more specifically some nutritional funding, and we're still awaiting from details on what that will look like.
Okay, so what we heard from our association was this fund was extended another year, and then they were looking at an additional fund. So this one is gone and now it's going to be strictly food.
I'm going to defer to to Secretary Treasurer Wang to provide some clarity there.
Yeah, that's correct. So the student and family affordability grant is a one-time grant. It's only for 22-23. What will be carried forward into next year is if a school district has some leftover or surplus funding out of the student and family affordability grant, that will be allowed to be carried forward into the next school year. So in our case, it will be around $500,000 because we did have a large amount of grant received. However, the grant came in later in the school year, so we will have some carry forward amount into the next year. So this is different from the new school food program funding. That funding is a brand new funding and will be the government said it will be sustainable and then also consistent over the next 3 years.
So just clarity again, we were given $1.8 million.
That's 1.96 was the funding for this year.
For this year.
For the Student
And
and
what
Family
we-
Affordability Fund
Right.
specifically.
Yeah, I've got them separated.
Yeah.
now. So we've got this fund. So what we have next year is 600,000.
Yeah, depending on what the
Roll
final numbers, what we will carry, those that will be carry forward funds.
So this is not helpful. When we were advocating in certain spots, and I was somebody who was advocating, and en masse, people are saying it can't be a one-time thing. It just can't be a one-time thing. That's cruel. And we were assured that it was going to be carrying on at least for next year. But you're saying we just got permission to use the rollover fund, but we're missing a lot of money then. Or families are missing a lot for next year. So I can talk and get some more, but if I'm understanding that correctly, we need to do some more advocacy. Because that's just, there's a whole bunch of money missing, a whole bunch of support for next year.
Yeah, and I deferred to Secretary Treasurer Wang about the carry forward and pieces of that. We've treated it as one-time funding, absolutely.
No, I know.
What I'm grateful for, certainly within our district and the board's support, is for the funds and programs that we've had prior leading up to this. But this has a significant enhancement for this 1 year for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Beliza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question is related to Trustee Sargent question. But thank you for this good report. What I can see here in your summation of the 1.18 million that had been allocated, 700,000 goes to food security.
Yes, thus far this year, yes.
As I see in this report, I see a long-term needs. And that's the good news. What I'm not certain is it is only a one-time funding. So a long-term needs with short-term funding. So that is where the question of can we sustain in terms of funding of this long-term needs? Now we have a good news that we have this school food program for the next 3 years, and there could be some kind of renewal for this year. But do we have a plan, a long-term plan to address this? Because when we initiate the child poverty initiative, 1/4 of this in the school district or in Richmond lives below poverty line. We cannot address all this by our district, but what we can probably plan ahead is adjust those for our school district. So I don't know, I would like to ask your opinion as to what are we going to do as a trustee, as the Board of Education to address this question?
Big question. I certainly, one thing that we have strengthened over the last year, in addition to having these funds, is just our community partnerships and supports. And that's something that we'll continue to look at. Certainly what we've discussed and what we consider is as a school district, while we want to support everything directly ourselves, where can we access and point families to for additional supports? So looking within the purview of what we are able to support, we will always do that to the most fulsome way possible with the funds that we have. And then how do we look to partners? How do we help support families in accessing services beyond the school district? And how can we help provide pathways where we don't provide the direct supports ourselves?
Trustee Yang, but I'm gonna kind of interject first because my understanding was the same as trustee. I thought when I heard the education minister speak, I mean, she said very clearly that what they heard was that one-time funding was not enough, that you can't just give us one-time funding, we cover all these things and then it's gone. And that they were finding a way to continue. We were waiting for an announcement. Now I know the other funding that they're going to announce regarding the food programs, I thought was separate. So it seems like maybe there's some confusion in if they're going to announce on the possibly in a few days, we could clarify that. But you know, a large portion of this was food security. It was put towards food security, but I mean, there are things like student supplies and fees and field trips that were covered that, you know, that's a one-time thing and those things are ongoing. Those students are going to want to continue those. Anyway, it sounds like we have some advocacy to do, but I'm sorry, Trustee Yang, for stealing the show there. I just wanted to clarify that it was my understanding that it was going to be renewed, but if it's not, then we clearly have. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to Assistant Superintendent for that report and just giving us the figures. Just a quick comment. I mean, there's really no surprise when we read the report versus what we've been hearing on the ground is that, you know, there's a big need for, you know, feeding our children and feeding our students right now. And these are hard, you know, volatile, more or less volatile economic times. And so we certainly see that reflected in our report. And, you know, it's just from conversation, I think in our community that needs to be raised more prominently. I think you know, food security may not be, you know, the hottest topic out there as I can gauge, but it really should. And, you know, again, this illustrates my point exactly, and sheds light on the amount of poverty that really exists in our community, you know. And so I commend you for your work. And, you know, I just think for students to be able to succeed, they need to meet that basic need of food. You know, we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's certainly one of the most basic ones. And so satisfying that will allow our students to achieve academic success or any form of success in their journey of learning. And, you know, I see other jurisdictions around us that have made progress on things like food security. I know Minnesota recently passed laws for universal food programs. And so other jurisdictions have taken a step forward. And so I'd be interested to see what kind of steps Victoria will be taking to make sure that we move in the right directions for our children. And, you know, as others have said, you know, other costs associated with school are also very important. And that's why the issues raised regarding the affordability fund, I think, are legitimate, and I think is worth exploring through advocacy. But all in all, I really want to thank you, Ms. McMillan, for that report and just to highlight these issues in our district. Thank you.
Trustee Wong.
Well, this fund is really helpful for the student and the family because they affordable fund after the convicts. So this will benefit to the student or only and their family. So maybe we have a day of meet the MLA. Maybe we put this on the agenda, get them know about how important that fund is a benefit for the student and the family.
It has definitely highlighted some wonderful opportunities for support. And I can certainly share that some families have indicated by providing food support, it's alleviated pressures that has allowed them to redirect other funds in different ways. And so it's absolutely meeting the needs for some targeted supports for certain families.
Especially is that after school, we still have a benefit for them, yeah, and their family.
So we're looking forward to hearing the parameters of the new fund as well, so we can help with our planning for next year.
Trustee Larson.
Just really quick, this must be incredibly difficult in your position to be, you know, like face front and dishing it out and knowing there's still so much more that's needed and everything. So I hope you felt all of our appreciation for what you and your people do. And we have a lot of work to do in order to get communicating with the people that are going to make the difference and put the money where it needs to be so that you can continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I would really highlight the role of the school teachers and other staff and principals who really have been, when we talk about being the face of supporting the fund, that's great. They're the ones who have really, through their relationships with families, encouraged them to reach out, encourage those connections, help highlight, and then sometimes directly reach out and say, let us help you. I just really think across the district, there's been such a range of support that speaks to the relationships that have been developed across roles. And that's been also a real highlight of this year in working with this fund.
And that even leads to staff mental wellness as well, when you have to, when you're with that every day. Thank you.
Yeah, I think through this, we can see, you know, from the breakdown, the kind of things that are needed and what's important and, you know, how we might figure that out or advocate for those things in the future. So if that's what comes of it, but we'll have to get clarity hopefully soon. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. And I think we'll move on to the student voice update, which we're very excited to hear about. The superintendent, our acting superintendent,
Thank you.
Ryan, is going to make some introductions. Thank you.
So I have with me District Administrator Mika Livingston, and she's responsible for providing leadership with regards to the student voice initiatives, as well as many other things related to inclusive learning. And so we're very grateful that she's able to step in and work closely with us. And she's providing absolutely remarkable leadership, which you will hear in this presentation. So
great. Thank you.
So we're here to provide an update with regards to strategic priority 5, goal 3, and specifically our students' voices and perspectives are valued, encouraged, and embedded. So, again, I've just introduced you to Ms. Livingston, and I want to start by acknowledging you, the board, our former superintendent Robinson, District Administrator Livingston, and many others for their leadership that is making a difference as it pertains to student voice. I also need to acknowledge the remarkable work of staff in schools. You will hear throughout this presentation that collectively, we are all more mindfully designing opportunities to activate a broader range of student voices with the intention of incorporating what they are telling us into decision-making, which goes back to the priority statement. Our students provide perspective, which is encouraged, but it's also embedded. This is really all about our students and their lived experiences in our schools, and embedded student voice into decision-making is ultimately the evidence of our commitment in this area. And so with that opening statement, I will now pass it over to District Administrator Livingston, who is the operational lead on the student voice strategic priority.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure and privilege today to talk to you about student voice, an area of passion for me and an exciting part of my portfolio. Just some of the photos that you see here are from some of our initiatives so far this year regarding student voice, and I'll be speaking to some of those or all of those shortly. So this here is a broad list of our dedicated student voice initiatives for this 2022-23 school year. And I will speak to each item in more detail, but these initiatives exemplify, as Superintendent Ryan was saying, the many ways student voice is valued, encouraged, and accessed through both school and site-based activities, events, and committees, along with district-based initiatives. So some, like the first two, reference Table 38, which has a long-standing history in our district, and some of them, such as the Student Voice Forum, are brand new this year and we're very excited about. A common theme across all of these areas is a move towards accessing a more authentic and representative range of the diverse student voices in our district, while also ensuring that these voices inform our decision-making in all areas of our district. So the first two items on the list reference Table 38, which is, again, a longstanding leadership building initiative in Richmond, stands for the Association for Building Leadership Excellence, and it's comprised of student councils from all 10 of our secondary schools. And the executives of these student councils gather each year, and we met with them in November to discuss leadership in general, to discuss their current areas of passion and concerns, and their vision for Table 38 this year and beyond. This was also kind of the formal restart as we have moved through the pandemic. And so we engaged students in different activities around leadership, and we will also be gathering again in April or May with the executives of Table 38. So pre-pandemic, Table 38 would have each secondary school student council host a large meeting once throughout the year. As we have just restarted this, as we've moved through the pandemic, this year we're going to have, and we've already had 4 large-scale meetings that are co-hosted by 2 or 3 of the secondary schools. And so the next couple of slides will show you some examples of these events. The first one was at Palmer, co-hosted by Palmer and Steveston London, and approximately 100 students attended. And it was a joyous, exciting opportunity for students to gather together and share their passion for leadership and student voice. And these events are organized and run by students with sponsor support. So with my support and with the school-based sponsors of Student Council. And the students themselves decide upon a theme that is relevant and meaningful to them. So that first one in February, the theme was wellness. And at the start of March, at Richmond Secondary, Richmond, McNair, and McMath co-hosted, and again, 100 students attended. And what was unique about this one was that the 100 students that attended included students from Richmond High School that were not connected to Student Council. Our students in table 38 have identified, similarly to what we're recognizing, that as self-identified leaders, they don't necessarily represent the full breadth of diversity in our district. And they themselves are wanting to encourage their peers who are not necessarily those who would self-identify as a leader to get involved, to have opportunities to access leadership development opportunities, and to just get involved in student leadership and in sharing their voices about what's important to them, what matters to them at their school sites and in their school experiences. So the theme of that one was having courage and trying new things, which was really fitting for encouraging students to get involved who hadn't necessarily been involved before. So we have 2 more table 38 large scale meetings, and trustees are invited to attend our next one on April 19th. Our location is still being determined. It is being co-hosted by Cambie Secondary and Q Boyd and Burnett. And I believe it will be at Cambie, but they were still negotiating where they were wanting to host that one. And May 31st as well will be our last one, which will be hosted by McNeil and McRoberts. So again, one thing that has evolved with leadership in our district is that students are wanting to include more diverse voices, students beyond those self-identified leaders. And we're going to continue to explore how we can be more inclusive and representative, both as student councils at the sites and as we provide leadership development opportunities for all. And there's that real shift between not minimizing leadership and the importance of developing leadership, but accessing that broad range of student voice and using that diverse voice to inform the decision-making and initiatives that we have available for students across the district. So one of the initiatives in the strategic plan priority 5 is a connected learning community is to access student voice through a student voice working group. And the original purpose was to bring students together to discuss ways that we can broaden student voice across the district. But what we have found is that this working group structure mostly accessed the voices of those self-selected student leaders. And those are important voices, certainly. But as they themselves have stated, the students have stated, they did not authentically represent the fulsome diversity of our student population. And so our learning services leaders have met, and we've determined that the structures that are in place across all of our sites and alternative programs to access diverse student voices through a push-out approach honors that authentic voice in a way that is safe for students to share their ideas in comfortable settings with trusted adults in their own spaces. So we have developed scanning questions that we will be pushing out to sites and working with those trusted adults in those diverse spaces across our district so that we can support students in sharing their ideas and sharing their voice in a way where they feel safe and supported. And we are also scanning schools to figure out, to understand how student voice is accessed and honored and embedded at each site. So administrators at elementary and secondary are currently accessing the survey and sharing the ways in which they are honoring this at their sites. And the data that we are collecting will inform our next steps about how we can support them at their sites in supporting and accessing and developing student voice and how it informs decision-making at sites.
So I want to talk a little bit about examples of where we have more formal opportunities for student voice in, for example, the District SOGI Advisory Committee. And representation has been in place since 2019. The District Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee, student representation from the inception of fall of 2022, and the District Youth Mental Health Advisory Committee, which was established last year. Mika shared with me a message that she received. I just want to give you a sense of how profound our students are with regards to their commitments and passions in certain areas. And I want to speak to this notion of youth mental health. And so Ms. Connie Easton, who's the coordinator for mental health, SEL counseling programs in the District SOGI Lead Secondary, shared with me today that an advisory group speaking to this particular mental health advisory was established last year after we had a group of students who were passionate about mental health, who hosted an intergenerational dialogue event in May of 2021 as part of the work in the Agenda Gap project with UBC. I was connected to that research, and the students who participated were all from our school district. One of the recommendations from that dialogue event was to create a district Mental Health Youth Advisory Committee. And last year, the group participated in a series of panels on mental health literacy that were presented to PE teachers, counselors, and parents. And goal 4, objective 1, create a variety of ongoing opportunities to activate student voice to provide ideas, observations, and input to school and district decision-making. Providing a few examples, students in every secondary school had the opportunity to, through survey, to share what their thoughts were about certain timetable structures that they had experienced through the pandemic, including personalized learning time. And student voice is becoming increasingly embedded in classrooms as teachers provide students with opportunities with regards to how they choose to represent their learning. And another example is many schools have clubs that are run entirely by students. And some examples before us are Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion clubs and Indigenous Culture Club that has presented to staff and students during PLT on topics related to Indigenous voice and education.
So this next slide is the Student Voice Forum, this initiative, and this is an exciting new event for Richmond. And our intention here is to celebrate, honor, and access student voice in a way that demonstrates how important student voice is for all of our decision-making here in Richmond in education. So on May 2nd, approximately 200 students in grades 9 through 11 are going to gather together, and we are going to engage them in different activities to gain an understanding of how schools and supports are meeting their needs. It's going to include diverse students from all of our schools and across all of our alt programs and sites, and engage students in topics that they've identified that matter to them. And it will also be an opportunity for you to engage with students and for students to engage with us, and for them to really see that their voice is honored here in Richmond, and that we really think it's really important that they have the opportunities to share, and that we will use their voices in our decision-making across the district. So we're very excited about this event. And following the May 2nd Student Voice Forum, I think another longstanding event that we've had in Richmond is an event later on in May where students have the opportunity to share some of the leadership experiences they've been involved in over the year. And as that common theme of shifting from not just focusing on self-identified student leaders, but how we are nurturing and gathering student voice across the diverse spaces in our district. We're hoping that on May 2nd, as we collect student voice data and artifacts, that we are able to have students who are at that event reflect not only on their experiences at that event, but on the importance of how they've shared their voice and the opportunities that have been given them to do that, and have them be involved in the synthesis of that data from that large scale event on May 2nd, and then have them share their experiences again on May 22nd, when we have the Activating Student Voice Dinner, where we will hear from them about what that experience is like from their perspective and in their voices. So. And we are also, we have planned and are currently planning some more small group trustee and student discussions. So you may have already engaged with some small groups of students with staff at different sites and trustees to share ideas on a variety of topics. On March 2nd, some trustees met with international students at Richmond Secondary, and we have upcoming opportunities planned as well for trustees to meet with students and staff from diverse groups. And so those will be communicated through Rick in April through June, so in the months ahead.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Great, thank
Is
you.
there any questions you might have?
Got all kinds of questions. Trustee Yang.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the presentation. I honestly, I think there's a lot of nostalgia that comes back with this presentation because, you know, being one of those student leaders back in the day, I've certainly done my fair share of table 38s and, you know, student voice dinners. And so brings back a lot of fond memories. And, you know, to the point of the presentation, I think, you know, I think we're going to somewhere good because we do need diversification of student voices. And that, you know, it just better captures what all students think on aggregate, you know, a sports, you know, a sports player or an athlete doesn't necessarily speak for, you know, some other population or some other student with another interest. So it's nice to have a diversity in there, and it just gives us a more accurate student voice. So I commend you for that work. And with that, just a few questions. Would you say that students right now are more ready and willing to help us grow the scope of student voice in the district compared to perhaps other years?
Well, having just engaged in this portfolio this year, what I can speak to is that a lot of this is coming from our students. Some of our Table 38 leaders are the ones who have said that they want these opportunities to be extended to students beyond those who self-identify as leaders or who readily volunteer. They want those opportunities extended to students who need that encouragement to get out and get involved and might need different sorts of events and activities in order for them to feel comfortable and safe getting involved. So that is coming from the students. And when we meet together as that President's Council, that's something that has emerged and that I'm excited to explore further when I meet with them again this spring.
That's fantastic to hear that they're willing to engage.
Yeah, and I would say 3 days on the file. I suspect the students were always ready, and I'm not sure we were. So I think that's one of the elements of the strategic plan that is so helpful, is that it was a signal to our entire community about what was important to us. And then we'll have a responsibility to action.
Fantastic to hear. And just another question. I want to touch on representation because I think that matters a great deal. And we obviously did go through the various ways that students are represented in a more formal setting. So from your work with students, how do current students feel about these opportunities to participate in that more formal setting and these opportunities to represent their fellow peers?
Well, with the events that we've already had, it's just a great excitement. So it seems to me that they are ready, they're willing, and they're wanting to be involved. I think what will be interesting is to see with our inaugural May 2nd event, how that plays out with diverse students gathered together from across their district. And we are optimistic that it's going to be a great event.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that some of us will be there for sure. And again, thank you so much for the great work. I know I have a personal connection to some of this stuff, but you know, we do need strong leaders in our community and in our society for generations to come. And this is the work that we're doing now. And I hope to, you know, see in our work to empower students and to achieve that stronger student voice for our district. So thank you very much.
Hang on, Trustee Hamaguchi.
First off, well, I've been doing this now for 9 years, and it's always been great to meet with the students, and thank you for, you know, creating these ongoing opportunities, and you seem to have dialed it up a notch, which is even better, and I look forward to attending those meetings. Also too, thanks for when I went to school, because I went to Boyd and Stevenson, and you know, I would never have been on the student council, but it's nice to see now that there's opportunities for people like kids like me who went to school back then, who may not be for whatever reason be on the student council, to have a voice. And so I you know, that's, and hopefully I hope that's well appreciated by the kids who are like me. Lastly, you know, when we have discussion about student leadership, and this goes across different districts and everything, the topic always comes up about students being on school boards, student trustees. Has that come up in your discussion, in your groupings? And has that been an issue at all? Or has that been something that people want to talk about, or there not been an issue?
I think this year in the conversations that I have, that specifically hasn't arisen, but I'm not sure if you've heard anything different. Yeah.
Every once in a while, we get the discussion brought forward as to, you know, whether should we have students on school board trust. I mean, I have mixed feelings both ways, but I was just curious as to, because you're doing so much discussion, whether that has become an issue. So,
Yeah, hasn't come up yet this year.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Belisa, did you have your hand up?
Yes.
And then I got-
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the plan. Thank you for your work on creating a variety of ongoing opportunities to activate student voice. Me, as a trustee, is part of my campaign, really providing a voice for students. We know that the students are the future of this country. And to give them a voice is giving them some sense of empowerment. Pursuant to the preamble of the, School Act, we need to develop, to provide skill necessary, knowledge and skill necessary for making our student to be a part of a democratic, pluralistic society in a progressive economy. So I think giving them sense of empowerment, but thank you very much for all this, in different areas, because I think only student leaders feel that way, being uninspired students. We need to provide sense of empowerment to all our students, enable to succeed and develop their individual potential. So what I've been thinking is in some other countries, in some other schools, they allow students to have their own, to exercise the freedom of expression through newsletter writing or newspaper, giving them that sense of empowerment to express their own views. And second, to allow them to sit like trustees, to feel and run like the city council, like the trustees, like I think the idea of mentioned by Trustee Yamaguchi. And the third one is having run like a parliamentary system, a Supreme Student Council, where we have right now the table 38, right? But with the participation of limited few, but with the high school, only for high school, I guess the whole high school to let them feel that they're being empowered by voting and being trained for future activities. You never know, they might be the future trustees of this district or future councilors of the city. But to give them some kind of experience as a foundation for their political life, I think is very important. So do their economic life. So I really appreciate what you're doing. But in terms of empowerment, we need to empower them more. Thank you.
Hey, Trustee Wong.
So the table 38 is train the leadership. So the student is really, and then in collaboration with the other schools, student, and then get them have a project organization and confidence and get them have a public skill. So is that welcome the elementary school student?
Really glad you brought that up, actually, and I know that you also mentioned that some of these initiatives have been focused on secondary, and that's something else that our student leaders that are involved in Table 38 have brought up, and something that we are thinking about as we move forward to the evolution of Table 38 beyond about how we can access more than just leadership or provide different opportunities for leadership that engage people who get involved in leadership in different ways. And one of those things is to provide opportunities for elementary school students to also get involved in these sorts of events and these kind of mini conferences and things like that. So there are some initiatives that feeder schools have been working on this year. But as far as Table 38 goes, that's definitely something that's in our talks for the future.
I have attended before, is they have a grade 7 student in.
Mhm.
I really amazing the students can join the elders
Yes.
student to learn. So is that the student is that because we don't need to train their leader, but we get their voice. You know that the elementary grade 7 students so very excited
Yes.
and yeah, can give their voice out. Yeah.
We're excited to look at how we can connect them to the Table 38 experience moving forward. And also with the Student Voice Forum, this is our first year. So we've decided to focus on students in grades 9 through 11, just by the nature of the things that they might bring up when they're talking. And also it would allow them to be reflective on their whole school experience to date. But that has also come up in our talks about next year, what that might look like in incorporating some of those elementary, especially upper elementary school student voices as well.
I'm very happy to see, just like your report that on the March, that one is that can invite the people, not a member of the Table 38, so they can get this one step out and they will get second step out, right? They get their opportunity to know more about, yeah, and have an opportunity to join. Yeah, this is a really good opportunity for them.
Yeah, thanks.
Trustee Larson.
Thank you for the presentation. And I think it's really evident that you are listening to the kids, because to truly empower people, we have to listen to them, because they're the ones, like, as has been mentioned, they're the leaders of the future. We don't know. We don't know what they need for that. They will tell us, and we need to listen. And it's really evident that that's what's happening. You can feel the richness of how it's growing already just in this past year, and the change. So it's exciting.
If I could just make a comment that, and you touched on this, the notion of our openness to listen is also impacted by the way that we structure the ability to listen. So this whole notion of pushing out versus saying, why don't you come to a large scale public event like a leader would do and say, I'm comfortable in that space. And we know that we have learners that's never going to be comfortable. So this notion of having safe people in small group settings that will elicit those voices is part of what we're learning. So in this journey, right, this will just continue to evolve and grow.
Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, when we had our last conversation with students, I mean, we very clearly had heard that they wanted us to come to them and visit them in their schools and talk to them. And so it was kind of an aha moment for us. And I'm sure trustees are more than willing to go out and do that. So. But yeah, the student voices, they're the users of our system. They're the ones that should be telling us, you know, what they want, what they need, and how they view the system. And they always have interesting things to say. So thank you so much for the presentation, and we look forward to engaging with our students as soon as we can. Looking forward to it a lot. So thank you.
Mhm.
And we're moving into another session where we can take some questions from the public. If there are any questions. I don't think I see any online either. Okay, thank you. And standing committee reports, audit committee.
Chairperson, I have nothing to report.
Okay. And education committee.
I have nothing to report, but our next meeting will be April the 19th at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and facilities and building committee.
Meetings of the minute held, minutes of the meeting held on February 1st are attached for information. We had a meeting on Wednesday, March 1st. Next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April the 5th. Thank you.
Finance and legal.
Thank you. Next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, April 19th at 10 o'clock.
Thank you. And policy committee has a recommendation, but I'm trying to find it. Sorry. Why? I flipped all my pages, so now I've lost it.
56.
56. I've got everything all flipped in the wrong direction. Yes, thank you. So we have talked about this tonight. As our treasurer, Ms. Wang has discussed the enterprise risk management and the creation of a policy. And so this has been quite a while in the making, pulling this policy together, and we have already done a risk management. We've had consultants in and done a report, but we actually need to have a policy, and that was a recommendation, I believe, from the Auditor General. And so the policy is before you. It has been to policy committee several times, and it's here in its entirety. And so I will read the recommendation that the Board of Education approve attached policy 641 and 641R, enterprise risk management in accordance with board policy 204, creation and revision of policy and regulations. And I'm looking for, I've moved it. I'm looking for a seconder, Trustee Yang. And I just wanted to thank our Secretary Treasurer, Cindy Wang, for all her work on this policy. And it's a comprehensive policy, and I do believe it is ready for approval.
I just want to make a really quick comment that our Assistant Secretary Treasurer Maria Fu has put in a lot of time on this, on the creation of the policy. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking for a vote. Is there any discussion on the policy at all? I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Something's happened to my video. I don't understand. Anyway, I'm moving forward. Yes, our next meeting will be Monday, April 17th at 11. I'm still up there. My screen looks weird. Anyway, board committee and representative reports, council board liaison committee. Next meeting date is scheduled for Wednesday, April 5th. And correspondence, we do have a letter from our CUPE local 716 regarding the National Day of Mourning, which is held for workers that have been injured or held in the workplace. And the board wishes to support this day, as we usually do, and it's a very important day. So I have a motion here, and I'll read it. And I'm looking for, I guess, actually, I think I'm going to give it to Trustee Yang to read, and so he can move it, and then I'm looking for a seconder.
Chairperson, thank you. Whereas the Board of Education, Richmond wishes to express support to LoCUP Local 716 for their desire to recognize death and injury of workers on the job. Be it resolved that the Board of Education Richmond officially recognize April 28th as the National Day of Recognition for workers killed or injured on the job, with a 1-minute cessation of work at 11 a.m. on Friday, April 28, 2023. And further, that flags in the district be lowered to half mast on that day.
Thank you. And seconded by Trustee Sargent. Is there any discussion? Okay, calling the question. All those in favor? Of course. Okay, the motion is carried. And so usually we have, some trustees, I know we're I think that day we're supposed to be at our BC School Trustees Association. But usually one of us comes back and pops by and attends. And we'll also have our senior staff there. So it's a very important day. Thank you. And we're happy to support it. Okay, there's nothing else on the agenda, so I'm looking for someone to move adjournment, trustee Yang, and seconded by trustee Larson. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, everyone, for. Was a teacher. Yeah, I don't know. That was great. We did it. Yes. Yes. Oh, what? Did you see my screen? Oh, it changed. Oh, maybe. No.
Well.
It's funny, I just met with Mike.
No, that's okay. I noticed I was still up there.
Okay, so
We did it.
like I'm